No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Well, Mandy got one thing right. Dave Manouk is here. Ezzy Ginsburg is not here. Drew Mandel is not here, but we're lucky enough to be joined by Joe Pascucci here on tonight's Illegal Curve post-game show. So with that intro clarified, good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live, wherever you are on the interweb, good evening to you. And welcome. Almost good morning. The last show, Joe, it was good morning. This one, we still got a little evening to work in. So good evening.
Well, for me, it's good morning.
Yes, that's true. Joe is good enough to joining us from out east. So it's an hour later for Joe. But for the rest, those of us in the central time zone, or if those are joining us out west, it is still good evening and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Joe, welcome to the show. I obviously you've joined us before. You've joined me. You've been gracious enough with your time. What was your initial reactions from the Jets? Needed to have a real good response game from that one in LA. And we saw that with their 4-0 win to regain a 4-point edge over the Dallas Stars, who also won tonight.
Yes, it was a good evening for the Winnipeg Jets, and of course for their fans with this victory, and a good a bounce back game, I would say, from the game against LA, which for the most part, for the majority of it, they didn't play that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But those three giveaways, defensive giveaways with the puck, or the mismanagement of the puck that led to the 3 goals, that's what did them in tonight. They were much better in terms of puck management up until the third period, which we'll get into later. But for the first 2 periods, or for most of the first 2 periods, that was a solid Jets effort. I was laughing because of the post-game comments from the previous game by the LA reporter about asking Scott Arniel if this was a measuring stick game. I hope Ken Weeb asked Scott jokingly tonight, was that a measuring stick game? But the Jets measured up tonight. I don't think we could have imagined their domination, and I think it was domination for at least the first 35 minutes of that game against LA. And then all of a sudden, things kind of went haywire there the last 5 minutes of the second period, and Eric Comrie had to come up big. But what a fantastic effort, and what a fantastic effort by this team tonight, and by everybody out there on the ice.
Well, it just goes to show you, Joe, I took a screenshot before it gets deleted, but I noticed one of the fan comments when they realized Eric Comrie was starting. And the comment was, well, we lost this game. Comrie's starting. And it goes to show you should probably reserve your commentary for after the game is concluded, and you can look like a know-it-all, because unfortunately for that gentleman, that was the wrong terminology. And look, we on this show, and you obviously have watched Eric Comrie for years, and we know that he's more than capable. 2 big shutouts this season. He beat the Carolina Hurricanes 3-0, and now he beats the Golden Knights 4-0. And I thought he was going to get this game. And, he does.
Yeah.
I should qualify my comment. I didn't think he was going to get the game when I didn't think he was coming on the trip. But once we realized he was on the trip, because of course he is expecting a child, he gets tonight's game. And were you surprised that he was the one in net for tonight's game? Or did you think
not entirely. A couple of reasons. He played well earlier this season. I guess the game back in November against LA. Or against Vegas. He was really good. And I thought against the Kings that Connor Hellebuck didn't look very sharp. And he's played obviously outstanding this season. And that was a rare kind of off game, I thought, for Connor Hellebuck. And maybe he was tired. I know that Kelly Moore, I was listening to the OB pregame show, and he'd mentioned that Connor Hellebuck had never played 5 straight games in a row.
Okay.
And so that may be also behind the decision. But I thought I was not surprised, actually, that they went with Eric Comrie because of those 2 factors. And I really do think that Connor Hellebuck looked really off the other night. He usually he makes one or two of those saves.
Yeah.
And, and I thought he was slow getting across on the second goal by Kopitar,
Yeah.
And then the third one went through his legs, right? So,
well, yeah. And, I think to me, Joe, I think that's a fair assessment, because that's what I said on our post-game show the other night. I said, listen, the Jets make turnovers, the puck, and usually Connor Hellebuck's there to back them up. If he's not there, if he's not being otherworldly, then those end up in the back of the net. So I agree with you. I thought, they were, again, we expect a lot, but there's a reason why he's in the Hart conversation. There's a reason why he's expected to easily win his third straight Vezina. And, like I said, this is not a small effort from Eric Comrie. And like you said from the outset, what stood out to me was, one, the way the Jets came out. They really set the tone. They really established a way of playing this game, which was, representative to me, at least, of Winnipeg Jets hockey, something we've seen. This was game, I believe, 76. So, I mean, we've seen this throughout the course of the season, and it was consistent. It stayed throughout the course. I mean, like you said, you're obviously going to have lapses. You can't play a perfect 60-minute hockey game, but I thought the Jets did a pretty good job of representing what their game looks like and not letting Vegas dominate. And again, remember, 8 straight games, the times that these two teams have played, Vegas has come out on the winning end. Yeah.
And, give the Jets full credit for their performance tonight. And, I strive for perfection from this team too much, or I expect perfection. But when they got into trouble late in the second period, and then in the third, for much of that third period, it was because they weren't, the forwards weren't checking behind them to see the guy coming up from behind.
The high guy, yeah.
And that happened time and time again. And it was like, what are you guys doing? And then, of course, that's when Comrie made his, played his best. Those 2 saves back-to-back off Mark Stone. I think there was another one on Howden as well. I mean, they almost gave up.
He had that in-tight save on Howden.
Yeah, but they were playing so well, and then all of a sudden they weren't, defensively, and then Comrie had to bail them out. I was, really worried that a late goal in the second period would give, Vegas some momentum going into the third, and then in the third period, again they weren't picking up the trailer, and Vegas did have their, the majority of the play in the third period, and didn't score, but they did have chances. And again, I'm striving for perfection when I watch the Jets. I want to see them control the game like they were doing in the first 35 minutes, and not what I wanted to see in the third. But overall, a great performance from a lot of players.
Yeah, and Joe, I posted this little note, and I thought it was an interesting one. That's a third time in franchise history, 2.0. I mean, hey, we're talking to no better source. We want to know about the 1.0. And by the way, as an aside, but I don't think anyone's going to mind, when you posted that Alexei Zamnov 5-goal effort, amazing. I love it. There's nothing I love more than when you post your clips online of the Jets 1.0, and that was a spectacular game in LA, and Alexei Zamnov was so talented. Doesn't get a lot of recognition, but so much talent.
And the fun part, it was 30 years ago that night, and the Jets were playing the Kings again.
Yeah.
And then they used it in the TSN broadcast, or they mentioned it in the TSN broadcast that night as well.
Yes.
So that was nice.
No, it's just, those are great memories, of course, for the Jets fans of the 1.0. But anyways, what I was going to say is, so this is the third time now in franchise 2.0 franchise history that they've won 52 games, but it's the first time they've done it with this many games left. The last 2 times, in 17-18 and last year, they did it in game 82. So they will have a chance to set the new franchise record Saturday in Utah. But of course, we're here to focus on tonight's game, which is, of course, a complete victory against the Vegas Golden Knights. And Joe, the other person I want to ask you about, because I think he is just monumental in what he is doing for this team. And I don't want to overstate it. I want to say like he's, it's the biggest, although I think it's just such a big need for this team. But Luke Shen, he wasn't in the lineup. We know he had stiffness in his stiffness, so he didn't play in the last game. It was a game time decision. They weren't sure if he was going to play this morning, but sure enough, and Scott O'Neill bristled a little bit, said, we're not going to talk about the lineup. We'll worry about that later. And sure enough, in warm up, Luke Shen is there. And, there were two plays there was a play in both the things in the first period. The one on Mark Stone, Mark Stone tried to get to the front of net and he paid the price, and Luke Shen sent him off to the corner. And there was another one, I don't remember who it was, but he threw him down like a rag doll. And I just thought to myself, like, this guy is exactly what the doctor ordered for this Jets team.
And then there was another defensive play where he got down and blocked the pass across.
Yes.
So I think that was in I'm going to say second period. I think that was in the second period.
That sounds right. Yeah.
During that stretch. So yeah, he had another outstanding game. I thought he looked a little slower than he usually does. So I think he's still being bothered by it.
Yeah.
From watching it on TV, it's hard to tell, but he didn't seem to be as quick as he usually has, or in the games that I've seen him play previously with the Jets, and he had an outstanding game. Colin Miller, of course, with the goal, had an outstanding game. And I think Miller is making a push to be in the playoff lineup, because he had, I don't know how many hits he finished with yet, but he had 3 in the first period. So he was dishing it out in the first period. So he certainly, if Neil Pionk comes back, Colin Miller wants to be that number 6 defenseman.
Yeah, and I think the team wanted to bounce back. I think some guys had rough games. Last one, Logan Stanley had a rough game. I actually thought Colin Miller had a bit of a rough game. So to your point, I think that you saw the bounce back, the complete team effort, and we saw it. Now, of course, we should mention Nikolai Ehlers. He had a couple of situations in the first period. Yes. He has to get helped onto the bench, kind of pulled onto the bench, and then he takes some friendly fire from Cole Perfetti. Now, the thought process is, and perhaps we'll get an update from Weber or Mitchell Clinton, who are down in Vegas when Scott O'Neill speaks. It may have just been a stinger, and there's no point in a 3-0 game to throw him back out there. So we don't know, but it doesn't look good. But he does tend to look like he's needing a stretcher every time he has something, and then he ends up playing or not.
Well, it's unfortunate he got hit by the puck in probably the spot where you don't have as much protection. The first one was the right ankle on the shot from Nicholas Haig. And then the third period there, when I think it's off just on the inside of the right knee.
Yeah,
I think that's where it was hard to tell on the replay where he got hit. And that was unfortunately taking the shot from Cole Perfetti. But when we know he goes down, and some people say he goes down too easily, but he certainly did need a lot of help to get to the bench the second time. And I don't think, I'm hoping it's not serious, but I'm sure it's painful.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I'm not minimizing his pain, because clearly he was in a bit, but you just wonder if it's just one of those things where, they want to just be precautionary, and not, when you're already up at that point, there's no point in potentially exacerbating something needlessly,
especially with the way the score was at that time. So don't take any chances.
Exactly. All right, well, let's get rolling here on, we don't have a ton of goals, but it's late. We're not going to go super long on this one, but let's get Play Now game recap started.
The Play Now game recap.
Learn to bet with Play Now, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. Well, like I said, Joe, the Jets were ready to go right from outset, and sure enough, they get rewarded. Now they have been giving up the first goal the last few games, so for them to kind of get things started is not a bad thing, and it didn't come pain-free, at least for Alex Iafallo. He gets the Luke Shen initial. There's a nice pass by Shen, but it gets redirected up into Alex Iafallo's face. He takes it and absorbs the pain. Got to be real. He deserves a lot of credit, because he didn't even blink. He just kind of kept on rolling, and makes a hell of a good pass to Mark Scheifele. And Mark Scheifele, again, he's got so much talent. He puts that one into the back of the net, and there's no surprise the Jets have a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, and I thought I don't know the Vegas defenseman was on that, but Iafallo waited just that split second to make the backhand pass right across to Scheifele, so that the Vegas defenseman, as he's sort of backing up, he overskates it kind of, right? So he waits for him to go past, and the pass was behind the the Vegas player over to Scheifele. And of course, there's no chance for Aiden Hill to stop it because he couldn't get over fast enough. And it was nice to see, Scheifele score another one for the team and get them off to a good start.
And Mark Scheifele just 1 point shy of 800 in his career. Although, as Joe would note, that doesn't mean he's the most ever for a Jets player because, of course, Thomas Steen has 950, right, Joe?
I believe he does.
Yeah. So
I always have to check just to double check. Yeah.
I only know because I think.
Or doesn't Howard Chuck have the most points?
No, it's Thomas Steen. I think Thomas Steen has 9.
Thomas Steen.
I'm pretty sure. Now you're going to make me check my notes, but I'm 99% certain that Thomas Steen has 950. Okay. Hold on, I'm going to quickly go. And no, 929. Oh no, Joe. See, I should never. I don't know. At 9. You know what? Thomas Steen has 950 games. He has 870 points. I know. I knew I was right on something, but I was wrong on the points. Dale Howard Chuck has the most points. You were right. I'm wrong. 929. It's games because he's about to pass him for games played. That's why I was getting a little confused there.
But the important thing is, and most of the the Illegal Curve fans, we don't care about franchise records. We care about Winnipeg NHL records.
I always make that distinction. That to me is a key one. I mean, again, like I said, I try not to disregard folks from Atlanta because there are still some folks from Atlanta who follow the franchise, support the franchise. So we make note when there's things. I'm pretty sure actually if some of the guys got assists, they moved past Dustin Bufflin on the all-time assists combined list. But I always try and make those distinctions because, but I should have known if Joe was telling me it's Howard Chuck, then I should have just listened to Joe and kept my mouth shut. But anyways, the Jets. Jets up 1-0 and feeling good about themselves. And you thought to yourself, okay, are they going to be able to build on this incredible start? And they do just that. Adam Lowry, who gets his 15th. And we should mention, of course, that one of the things that the Jets did in advance of tonight's game, Joe, was they went back to their original line. So are you surprised they kind of went back with the way the lines had looked previously?
No, you know what? I thought that in the game against LA. I was thinking, you know what, maybe time to go back because it just seems that Ehlers was playing at a different speed than Lowry and Appleton.
Mm-hmm.
And not that they couldn't keep up. It just didn't seem to fit. I know it had worked previously, but just that game didn't seem to fit. So I kind of suspected that, that Scott Arniel might go back to them. And it certainly worked. It worked. It seems that Scott Arniel can do, no wrong so far this season because he seems to push the right buttons, 95% of the time.
Yeah. And in this instance, you've got the Appleton, Niederreiter, and Lowry line doing what they do, which is cycling the puck, being hard, being physical. I thought Adam Lowry was noticeable in this game, using his size to his advantage. And then Mason Appleton, like I said, gets the puck to the back to the point. Logan Stanley, he gets the shot in front. And then one of the things we talked about in, I think, our last show, Joe, was the fact that the Jets weren't getting to that front of the net. And if they wanted, and actually I was on CJOB last night, not last night, yesterday for Jets at Noon. And one of the questions that Cam and Jim asked me was about the idea of the Jets getting to the front of the net. And I said, look, they've got guys who will do it. Alex Iafallo will do it. Nino Niederreiter will do it. Mason Appleton will do it, as will Adam Lowry. I'm not saying it's exclusively those guys, but they have the guys who can get to the front of the net, and that's what they needed to do. It's exactly what they do. And the reward is Adam Lowry gets his 15th goal of the season. That matches his career high that he set a few years back. I think it was 16-17 maybe. And so he's on pace to maybe potentially eclipse his career high, but an important goal, and it really kind of set the tone, I thought, in that first period.
Yeah, and Lowry, actually, if you go take the play back even further, he made the play in the Jets' defensive zone when he he made the defensive play on Howden, getting the puck from him. And then Appleton, I think, brought it into the Vegas zone, rimmed it around the boards where it went back to Stanley and his shot. I'm not sure if it hit Niederreiter or hit Hill and then Niederreiter, and then Lowry, buried the rebound. But
yeah, it must have hit Niederreiter because they credited him with an assist.
Yeah, and as you said, getting to the front of the net, that's very important for this Jets team. They did that against the Devils, right? When they won that game. All of their goals, the 4 goals they scored in that game, all the result of going to the net. And if you're going to win in the playoffs, you got to get the greasy goals. You got to go to the dirty areas. And, and when the Jets don't do that, that's when they play to the outside or they're kept to the outside, that's when they're not as successful.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so here you go, you got a 2-0 lead. And you're thinking, well, I mean, and again, it's not just the goals, Joe. It's like we've said, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I think it's one worth making or reiterating, that they've controlled the play. They've really limited the chances for the Golden Knights. And again, this is a very good Golden Knights team, right? They're first in the Pacific, but they're not first by a long shot. They both LA and Edmonton are within, not really Edmonton so much, but LA is within striking distance. And I believe with tonight's loss by Vegas and the Kings winning in Utah or defeating Utah, I don't know if they played in Utah, but I think they did. That's put them 1 point back, I believe. I think LA now has 97 points and Vegas has 98. So first in the Pacific is not a guarantee. And maybe LA is sick of playing the Oilers in the first round. They've decided, listen, we're going to try and take first so we don't have to play the Oilers again. But to me, that was just, again, it was, what I guess what I'm getting at is that it's an important game for the Golden Knights as much as it is for the Jets. And the Jets, if you look at all the metrics, controlled that first period.
Oh, that was domination. I think the only shift that the Vegas had was the first shift of the game where they got the puck into the Jet zone. But after that, it was all Winnipeg. Maybe their, you hate to say it, maybe their best period in the last few games, though they did play really well against Dallas, going back to that game, but maybe their best period since the Dallas game, really, where they totally dominated a team.
Yeah. And I think I think that's another good point by you, is that we wanted to see what kind of, not about measuring sticks or anything like that, because I think that stuff doesn't really matter anyways later on, but you just want to see what kind of response this team is going to have, because they need, again, I agree with you. Like I said yesterday on the radio, I didn't think the Jets played a particularly bad game. I think they just had the mistakes get burnt, by the 3-4 errors that they made ended up in the back of the net. And traditionally, Connor Hellebuyck has made those stops to kind of cover for the wars when they happen. He didn't. And so as a result, they got exposed. But I thought they had plenty of chances. But if you look at the advanced stats in this one, in that first period, high danger chances were 7-1 at 5-on-5 in favor of the Winnipeg Jets. So I think the eye test matches the analytics on through the first 20 minutes of the game. I'm going to reset here. This is, of course, the Illegal Curve post-game show. We come to you live each and every time the Jets play. And, of course, on Saturdays with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, 9 o'clock to 11. And, Joe, this is another big win for the Jets. But before we get that going, we want to make sure that everybody has smashed that like button, hitting the subscribe button. Make sure you turn on the notifications so you know each and every single time we go live. So, Joe, the question was, how would the Golden Knights come out in that second period? Would it be, a pushback? What could we see? The Jets, of course, go to the power play, which has not been, super powerful of late. And in fact, they've been overtaken by teams, right? We've got the Jets they were the first place power play for the majority of the season. And they were overtaken by these same Golden Knights. So the Jets were able to kind of stymie the Knights in that regard, but also, because Colin Miller, we should mention, of course, took the roughing penalty. By the way, that was a terrible, Joe, I'm curious about before we get to the second completely, what was your thought on that penalty?
Bogus.
Yeah.
I agree with Kevin Sawyer. There was no penalty there.
Yeah.
Just making something up.
Yeah, it was, I will give the refs credit, because sometimes you watch them and you're like, hey, they're calling a good game. And I don't remember which game it was. Maybe it was even I don't know if it was the LA game, but it was one of the games recently. And I was like, okay, they're leaving alone. They're letting them play. They're not going to call things that are on the margin. And they're just going to, obviously if it's egregious, you got to call it, fine. But like, they're leaving it alone. And I just kind of watched that and I was like, okay. And then for the most part, they kept it neat, and they didn't really go overly whistly, but sure enough, Roy got a high sticking penalty against Mark Scheifele, and the Jets go to the power play. The first power play unit doesn't get anything doing. And then in the second half of that power play, the second unit goes on. And sure enough, Colin Miller against his former team with an absolute blast to make it a 3-0 game for the Winnipeg Jets, just like everybody expected.
Yeah, and the first power play unit again, that obviously was not what they had hoped for. But when
Mhm.
the second unit came on with Appleton, Niederreiter, Iafallo, Nemestikov, and Colin Miller, I think I got
Yep.
the five right there.
Yep.
They controlled the puck into the Vegas zone, worked it
Mhm.
around the boards. I think they took a lot of shots. Not all of them got through,
Mhm.
but they got the puck back. And then finally, Miller has an open lane and he just blows it past Aiden Hill. We know Miller's got the big shot, and it's nice to see, them going through. And once again, the second power play unit comes through for the Jets, as it has for the majority of the season.
Well, and like I said, that he's feeling good about that contribution. And one of the things I think, again, I would be interested in your take on that, Joe, but I thought that the Jets, I know that you said Luke Shen, and we know that he was obviously dealing with something, but I thought the Jets looked faster. And we know they took a day off yesterday. And I just thought that the team looked a little bit more refreshed, maybe. And I know we're already, like I said, we're only 6 games left in the regular season, but I thought that they had a little bit more speed throughout the game. And I thought the players, one of the things that we've commented on was that the power play has returned to that sort of static lack of movement. And we should note, of course, that they did make a change. Cole Perfetti was up on the first power play unit, and Alex Iafallo went down to the second unit.
Yeah, I'm seeing the problem with the first power play unit is that there's too many players out there who are thinking pass first instead of shot.
Yeah.
And and I'm going to include Kyle Connor in that group, because all of a sudden, he's not shooting the puck off the side there anymore. He's trying to make a pass. Mark Scheifele, who has a great shot, he's also trying to pass. And of course, you've got Morrissey back there, and he's always trying to pass. And Nikolai Ehlers is kind of the same thing. You've got too many players at this particular time that are trying to pass and not shoot. Where you saw the second power play unit tonight, they were shooting. And, when they got out there, they got the zone time, and then they were firing pucks at the net as much as they could, and it finally resulted in goal. But I'm thinking what's the problem with the first unit is that they're just not shooting the puck. They're trying to make the perfect play, and it worked earlier this season. They had some, they get the puck down low to Ehlers or to Velarde, right? Yeah. And either they would take it to the net or make a nice cross ice pass to the other guy at the other side of the net, and he would score. And we haven't seen, that play where Kyle Connor would take the shot, but it's actually a pass to Velarde at the side of the net, and he just bangs it home. So, that's, to me, has been missing from the first power play unit, just trying to make the perfect play, and of course we've seen that when they get a 5-on-3 power play advantage where they can't even get a shot off because they're trying to look for that perfect shot, perfect play.
Although interestingly, I think they are middle of the pack when it comes to actual 5-on-3. They just haven't scored recently, but I didn't believe they have 4 5-on-3 goals throughout the season. But you are right, Joe. Of late they have not had that same level of success, and it's almost like it's almost like decline it. Don't worry about getting 5-on-3. But you're right. And so the Jets get that all important 3-0 goal. And the one thing I liked again was the fact that the team didn't lock it down. They played smart. They didn't take stupid chances, but they were able to kind of maintain the pace. And you knew that Vegas was going to start to push because now they're feeling it, right? Now they're down 3-0. They know that the Jets, one thing we've talked about with this Jets team is that when they have the lead, they don't generally give it up. And the Vegas Golden Knights had a lot of chances. I mean, they didn't have a ton of high danger chances. It was only 1-0 at 5-on-5 in the second period, but again, they created a lot of things. And to your point, that one of the things I saw was that there was a lot of opportunity for the trailer to come in, and it seemed like guys were standing around a little bit. And Eric Comrie came up with some big saves in that second period.
Yeah, they were just puck watching.
Yeah,
too much, right? Get your head on a swivel, see who's coming from behind you, and prior, there was that. Vegas had a 3-on-1 break because Iafallo made a bad pass.
Yep.
And Stone missed the open net. Right there, just little things like that. The fourth line, I wrote in my notes, the fourth line got caught out on a long shift. But they were able to keep Vegas to the outside. They, finally forcing Eichel to make a long range shot that Comrie easily stopped. And then that's when we saw them starting to lose track of the trailer coming into the play, and Mark Stone forcing Comrie to make that great left pad save.
Yeah.
And then Comrie had to make another save off Mark Stone, and then the Howden save he had to make in the final minute. So
which was really close.
Yeah. So it's just, they were playing so well, and then they sort of drifted off there defensively, which is disappointing. Again, I mean, I'm expecting perfection from the Jets as we get closer to the playoffs, right?
Well,
so that was kind of disappointing that they kind of got away from the game that they were dominating, and they led Vegas back into it.
Well, and so that is exactly where I was going to go with you. So where in the third period did you like the way the Jets started? Because so they end the second period, they're up 3-0. Again, Eric Comrie in my mind is outstanding to this point, but I mean, from my perspective, I was sitting there going, okay, I from a Jets perspective, you look at this team and you're like, when they've had 3-0 leads, even against good teams, they generally are able to lock it down. But I was very curious, knowing their history against Vegas, knowing how things have gone, how things would look. And I thought that they came out the right way in the third period and were able to kind of set a good tone and really establish themselves, which worked for the remaining 20.
At the start, they had a good for that third period, right? Because Vegas changed their goaltender, right? They put Schneid in.
Yeah.
And right within the first 30 seconds, Kyle Connor comes down the wing and he has a good shot. And then after that, to me, it seems like, okay, you got a 3-0 lead. You have enough goals to win.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jets seem to be trying to score more goals. And I guess you don't want to take your foot off the gas, and you don't want to play completely defensive, right? But they got caught trying to score more goals. And then they started, making some defensive mistakes. I wrote down that Lowry didn't get the puck out once. He had a chance to get the puck out, didn't get it out. And that led to another chance by Mark Stone that forced Comrie to make a pad save or a toe save at the side of the net. So they just seemed to get away from the intensity that they had in the first 35 minutes in that third period, because that was a domination by Vegas in the third period. What were the shots? 12-2 or 12-3 in that period?
In total? I don't have it right in front of me, but I can grab it in a sec.
I'm just going to get it. It was 14-3.
14
for Vegas. 14-3 for Vegas in the third period.
Yeah.
So, that's obviously what, Scott O'Neill and the rest of the coaches are going, they're not going to dwell on it too much, but they're, I think they're going to point out the fact that, hey guys, we had control of this game and we almost let them back into it.
Yeah.
We're not defending as well.
No. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't have the puck, it doesn't matter if the only thing I would say is I don't think that there weren't a ton of high danger chances, right? And again, I know you don't want to nitpick here, but I just think to me, and by the way, Joe, just remind me to never be a student of yours, because you are a very hard marker. I've noticed this. This seeking of perfection is made me intimidated. If I ever have to be graded by you, don't ever if you're ever judging the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, make sure you focus on Ezzy Drew. Leave my name out of it, please, because I'm intimidated by this right now.
I would just like to see the Jets win the Stanley Cup in my lifetime. Wow. They have a very good chance this year. I think they, I just want to see, as we get closer to the playoffs, a little more perfection.
And look, Vegas is a very good team, right? We know they've got, and again, I thought they neutralized a lot of their talent. I mean, you mentioned Mark Stone. Actually, Jack Eichel for throughout the course of this game, I didn't notice. I mean, I saw him in the game, obviously, but he is one of the best players in the NHL. And I didn't think he was as dominant in this game as he could have been. And again, I think that's a credit to the Jets for being able to neutralize him. And they have a ton of weapons, right? This is like I said, this is one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And the Jets were able to, you're right. I mean, I'm not going to deny it. The Jets were outshot in the third period, but I just thought that they protected the way they should. But I do have to do one thing, because Doug, pointed this out. See, this is the best part about the chat, and they keep us honest, Joe. Like, you're keeping me honest,
Okay.
and the chat keeps us honest. I did forget to
All
do
right.
this after Mark Scheifele's goal, so I'm going to give this right now.
The Seagrams shot of the game.
Many thanks to our friends at Seagrams, who Manitoba's favorite Canadian whiskey, Seagrams 83. Drink responsibly. So that goes to Mark Scheifele's rocket of a shot. His 37th put him one shy, like I said, of 800 in his career. So I should have done that earlier, Joe. See, sometimes I'm trying to do too much stuff and I'm getting it all done, and I forgot the Seagram shot of the game. But Doug reminded me, and I appreciate that. And the fine folks at Seagrams appreciate that Doug reminded me of that as well. So the Jets have a 3-0 lead, and as you mentioned, Joe, they are outshot, outchanced, but another Eric Comrie save, 13 in fact in total in that period, and then Cole Perfetti goes down the other way, and sure enough, he gets his 18th goal of the season. We don't really break down empty net goals, but still, I mean, the fact of the matter is that Cole Perfetti is probably feeling good after injuring Nikolai Ehlers potentially to find the back of the net and get the Jets a 4-0 lead, which ends up being a 4-0 win.
Cole Perfetti has obviously, just like Dylan Sandberg, raised his game this year. And I think I was mentioning earlier this week on Winnipeg Sports Talk there about how I'm just marvel at how he can go into the corner. And he's obviously not the biggest player, but how he can go into the corners and he can take pucks away from players. He can control the puck behind the net, and he hits people. One of my pet peeves is, finishing. Jets don't always finish their checks. Right. They have a chance to hit the player after he passes the puck, but they don't do it. And Perfetti, I guess being that prick that he described himself as, right. He does that. He hits players, and more power to him, and I think that he has obviously been a difference maker this season, and hopefully that continues on again for the playoffs. I think that I'm excited to see what he can do in the playoffs.
I think we're all excited because, one of the things that we talked about with respect to Cole Perfetti, Joe, is the fact that he wasn't, and Kevin Sawyer was on our show, not last week, but the week before. And it was something that we had talked about, but Kevin reiterated, and Kevin, of course, former NHLer, so he knows it well, but he said he wasn't a driver. Earlier in the season, he wasn't a driver of a line. And I said, I said on our show, I said, he's a complementary piece, but he's not a driver. Like Nikolai Ehlers, driver, Mark Scheifele, driver. Cole Perfetti wasn't a driver. Well, he's got his license because he's a driver now, Joe. And he really is like, you're right. He's doing things that we weren't used to seeing him do, things that he needed to do. And, going to those hard areas, going to the tough places to play. And he, honestly, like even in today's game, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but it was right behind the Golden Knights net. He took a big hit, got up, and popped the guy back. And I thought that's a sign of the fact that he, this is not the same guy who got the stick to the face by Ryan Hartman and was kind of shell shocked. This is a guy who now is an established NHLer, isn't going to be pulled out of this lineup like last year. And we heard it from Scott Arniel the other day when he was talking, I don't remember exactly when, but he was talking about just Perfetti and just how the mindset has changed. And you can see it in his play in all facets, not just, of course, the areas where we know he excels in terms of the playmaking and his goal scoring, but also in the physicality. Yeah.
And I think the physicality is awesome. In football, there's a term that, the game slows down for players. Right. And I think, in Cole Perfetti's case, maybe the game has slowed down for him, where he sees everything much faster in his mind and is able to control the play and is the driver. As you pointed out, now he is to me. I would say he is a driver now. I would agree with you 100%. And he's he complements Nikolai Ehlers and and Nemestikov. He's also one of those sneaky little players, and he gets under other players' skin. So that's a really good line for the Jets, and Perfetti's elevation of his play has just made that a more dangerous second line. And what the goal tonight, and even though it was into the empty net, third game that he has scored a goal, 3 games in a row for him. So yeah, unfortunately he was the one that took the shot that hit Nikolai Ehlers, but hopefully there's not too serious there.
Yeah. And the Jets would, like I said, would go on to win 52, 20, and 4 is their record after 76 games. So a very impressive total for the Winnipeg Jets, and all important, Joe, because don't look now, the Dallas Stars won, the Colorado Avalanche won, the St. Louis Blues, Joe, won their 11th straight game this evening, and are now they leapfrog the Minnesota Wild, who are not in action tonight. I think the only team that from the Central that didn't win was, in fact, Utah. But the fact of the matter is that you just can't take your foot off the gas with the way things are playing out. And I know that the Jets, again, Dallas has a game in hand, so it's their 4-point lead is, it's still important because, as someone pointed out, I believe the Jets have the tiebreaker. So it's really actually a 5-point lead over Dallas than it is a 4-point lead, because if Dallas gets 4, the Jets would still have that advantage. But the fact of the matter is that you just, and one of the things, and I'll ask your opinion, then we'll go to break. But, one of the things that Scott Arniel was asked about is the benefit to having Dallas chasing them, because it's not allowing them to take their foot off the gas and be like, and rest on their laurels. What do you think of that idea?
I agree wholeheartedly, because I want to see the Jets playing meaningful games down the stretch, right? I think that'll make them better prepared as they head into the playoffs. Though, of course, last season they won 8 straight heading into the playoffs, and we saw what happened after they lost their first one. But I'd like to see them play meaningful games. I think that I don't want to have, players subconsciously take a night off or take a shift off, right? I want them to feel the pressure, right? Because that's what's going to happen in the playoffs. I mean, that first 35 minutes or so was just perfect playoff hockey by the Winnipeg Jets. The last 25, not so good. I know I'm super picky. No,
that's fine. That's fine. And I'm going to, Stonewall Dave has given me a fact checking me in real time. So I fact checked myself, and he's right. Regulation wins. Dallas and Winnipeg are actually tied 41-41. The next tiebreaker is RO Dubs, and that is where the Jets have the advantage at 51 versus 48. So we'll see where this plays out. And as JB points out, you got to win the games, and that's true. And the fact of the matter is, but I just think that it's a good thing for the Jets, and to your point, to not take your foot off and to have to refine your game, because you can't be satisfied. And you're right. 8 games. Like I remember I once looked at this, because people were so focused on, or hyper focused on, how you concluded your season would determine how you did in the playoffs. I actually looked, and I think I looked, this is a few years back, but I remember looking at either 10 or 15 straight Stanley Cup sort of winners and how they had gone in. And some, like I remember the Kings went in, I think they were 3-7 in their final 10. I looked at the last 10 games before the regular season ended. And I again, I haven't done it in the last few years, but it's just, to me, it's interesting that it was all over the board. It wasn't like there was one size fits all. Not a surprise, of course, but it just, again, we'll see. Can the St. Louis Blues, follow what they did in 2019 with what they're doing right now?
Well, I saw portions of the Colorado St. Louis game, I guess on the weekend, and Jordan Binnington was the only reason that St. Louis won that game. Okay. He was unbelievable. He was doing what he did to the Americans in that overtime. A number of times Colorado should have scored to tie the game, and he just wouldn't allow it to happen. So I'm kind of hoping that they continue to move past Minnesota, because that is one team I don't want to play. Yeah, I wouldn't want the Jets to play in the first round because of the hot goaltender. They've got the hottest goaltender right now in the NHL with Binnington, the way he's been playing.
Well, as JB says, can you imagine Bucky and Binner against Binner first round? I will say,
I can imagine it. I don't want it.
Well, there's 2 things that are interesting. We had Jeremy Rutherford on, who covers the Blues for The Athletic this past Saturday, and he gave us some insight as to why the things have changed. But the only other, and folks can watch that if they're interested, but the interesting thing to me was the fact that I don't know if you saw today, but I think the Blues lost 5 players in their game. So it was a costly one for St. Louis. Even though they won the game, it was a costly one. According to Jeremy Rutherford, I think they had about 4 or 5 guys who were dealing with something after the game. I didn't get the final sort of analysis. I just saw him list off all the guys who either were playing hurt or left the game and didn't end up playing. So hold on. I think, Andrew Haleku, the professor, is asking me to ask you, Joe. He says, Darren Millard and Gene Principe, that's who followed Joe on CKND Sportsline, I think. Is that the truth? Is that accurate?
Yeah, it was Ron Kuipers, and there was Caroline Corey, Gene Principe, and then Darren Millard.
There you go. See,
that was the group, and then after Darren, it was Carlos Machado and Keith McMahon and Corey Warren, Russ Hobson, Michelle Lissel. There was a whole bunch. David Bastel. If I forget anybody, I'm going to be in so much trouble, right? Tyler Calver. I said Russ Hobson.
Yeah, you said Russ already. Well, Russ gets 2 mentions.
Yes. Wow.
He
deserves it. He's still there.
He's still there. He is. He's one of the only guys who covered the Moose with me for all those years. All right. Well, let us head to break, and we'll listen to our sponsors. We'll come back with some final thoughts, and we'll thank Joe for staying up late on the Eastern time zone. Thanks for that, Joe. Thanks to all of you for joining us. This, of course, is the Illegal Curve post-game show. Smash that like button. We're going to hear from our sponsors right now.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Well, we are back here on the Illegal Curve post-game show, the 76th post-game show of the season. Post-game show number 77 will be on Saturday. We'll have doubleheader, double duty, Joe. We have a Saturday morning show at 9 o'clock, the Illegal Curve hockey show, and then Saturday night at about 8:40 p.m., a little bit more of a normal time, if you will, with a 6 o'clock start in Utah. So we will have that at 8:40, and I believe it is the 3 of us back. Although you can take my spot if you want. Maybe I'll take a night off with Ezzy and Drew playing hooky tonight. But Joe, maybe you want to tell the folks about another 52-win team in Winnipeg.
First Winnipeg Jets team to win 52 games, the 75-76 WHA Winnipeg Jets. They went on to win their first WHA championship in that season.
Well, there you go. And the reason I knew that is because I knew that the Jets 1.0 never did, because I looked today to make sure that I would have that information, but I didn't, of course, look back far enough to see. Now, how many games did they do that in, Joe? You remember?
I'm going to say 78.
Okay.
I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it's 78. I don't think they played 80 games back then.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just curious to know in terms of reference, like how many, because like I said, the Jets obviously play 82 now. And I know that, of course, years prior, it was a few less games. So I feel like it was
season they played 84. They played 84 games.
Right. Am I wrong in thinking like the Kings games were always like the last game of the season? I feel like it was like game 75 was like against the Kings. That's why when you said it was game 75 again, I was like, I'm not surprised. I feel like they always play the Kings in game 75.
Well, they always used to play the Kings in doubleheader games. Right, they'd go to LA and they would play, 2 games in 2 days, and then when LA would come to Winnipeg, they would play Friday and Sunday afternoon games against the Jets, and then after the Friday game, they all go to Wise Guys, both teams.
Yeah, exactly,
and certain members of the media too.
Yeah, see, that was a little different time. I think it was a little. Yes. Although I shouldn't say that actually, because I remember when the Jets came back, we would often be out after a game, and we would see guys at one of the local watering holes in River Heights. And but yeah, anyway, so we got some updates there, Joe, from Vegas, courtesy of, well, I'm reading it from Mike McIntyre, but via Ken Wiebe. Scott Arniel, speaking with Kenny post game in Vegas, said he believes Nikolai Ehlers will be all right. He keeps getting hit with pucks, said Arniel with a smirk. So it doesn't appear there's any real concern. And Eric Comrie, who had the 27-save shutout in Vegas, told Kenny he wasn't certain he'd even play. His wife could give birth any minute, and he's going to fly back to Winnipeg once labor begins. Admitted it's been a nervous few days. So quite a performance from Eric Comrie, especially with everything else that is going on in his life.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of stress.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot. That's speaking as a father.
Yeah,
that's definitely a lot of stress. Though we're just, the guys are just kind of on the side. We're not doing the heavy lifting.
That is definitely true. And so, it has been a fun post game show. We should mention just a few house keeping notes of Jets prospects, Joe, because we keep track of that as well here on this channel. Kieran Walton, he was eliminated. He and his Sudbury Wolves were eliminated in 4 by I think Kingston, and so they are out of the OHL playoffs, which is interesting because he doesn't have a contract. So there's curiosity as to whether he'll sign an ATO and join the Manitoba Moose for the remainder. They, of course, have been mathematically eliminated, but they still have 6 games left. So we'll see if Kieran Walton is the 2024 6th-rounder, joins Manitoba. Kevin He and his Ice Dogs, the 2024 4th-rounder, they lost to I don't remember who Niagara is playing, but they're down 3-1. Jacob Julian, the 2023 5th-rounder, he's on the powerhouse London Knights. They swept their series, so they're up. They were up. They won 4-0. And Colby Barlow, he picked up an assist on the game-winning goal for Oshawa, and they're up 3-1 in their series. So a lot of games will be tomorrow night. And, of course, Braden Yager, he'll be back in action tomorrow, looking for a win for Lethbridge in Lethbridge. And lots of other things to come, Joe. But I think that's the end of this show. And so we thank you. Do you have any final thoughts before I say thanks to our sponsors and thank everybody for being on the show?
The only final thought is, come playoff time, what the Jets have to do, win the first 2 games at home. Can't split the first 2 games.
Really?
Got to win both. Win both.
All right, there you go. Some wise words from Joe Pascucci. Joe, we really appreciate you joining us here on this broadcast.
Been a lot of fun.
And you're welcome back anytime. You can replace Ezzy or Drew. You've got that Jets knowledge, 1.0. WHA, and of course, even 2.0. So we always appreciate whenever you provide your time and your insight, and I especially appreciate it. So I wouldn't be blathering here by myself, which would have been the result if you didn't join. So thank you very much. Thanks all the chatters for joining us. Of course, each and every time we hit that go live button, make sure you've smashed the like button. And a big thanks to all of our sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the post-game show, the Saturday show, and the website illegalcurve.com a possibility. They are in no particular order: Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Play Now, Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place, and Seagram. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of illegal curve hockey. The Jets are practicing tomorrow in Utah. The Moose are practicing tomorrow in Winnipeg. And then both are in action on Saturday. The Moose have an afternoon matinee against, I want to say, the Chicago Wolves. I will be there. We've given away the tickets already for that game. If you want to go on Sunday, though, Joe, if you want to go, or if anybody in the chat wants to go, they just have to send me an email, dave@illegalcurve.com, or send me a message on social media. I see Dave, and we can get you tickets to that game in the IC zone. And then there's only 2 more games after that, the final 2 games of the season. That'll be the following weekend. I believe those are Friday and Saturday games. And like I said, you'll be able to join us on Saturday morning. But illegalcurve.com will have all the latest news tomorrow from both practices. So stay tuned for that. We thank Joe Piscucci once again for joining us on this show. Congratulations, Eric Comrie. Big shutout for him. And the Winnipeg Jets pick up an all-important victory to give themselves a little breathing room between them and the Dallas Stars. Setting up, Joe, what's going to be a great game next Thursday night, and where we will be, Joe, if you're welcome to join us, Boston Pizza Taylor for an IC watch party. So if Joe wants to fly into town, we'll get Ezzy to pay for it, but you're welcome to join us at Boston Pizza on Taylor. And if you can't, well, you can join us on the post-game show after.
I know it'll be a lot of fun, but sadly, I will not be able to make it.
Oh, you appreciate it, and you're always welcome. Anyways, thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks a lot for everybody in the chat. This, of course, has been the Illegal Curve post-game show. I'm Dave Manouk. We will see you tomorrow on the website, illegalcurve.com, and then on the show Saturday morning.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.